We're going to be, of course, joined by the Congress and the BJP in a short while from now. But we also have with us from Hyderabad University, we have Professor Kancha Illaiah joining us from Hyderabad, the senior Dalit writer from there. We have with us from Chennai, Professor Ramu Manikandan, who is a professor of political science at Madras University. And from Kolkata, we have Professor Tapti Guha-Thakurta, who is a professor of history at the Center for Studies in Social Sciences from there. While we wait for our political guests to join us, let me just ask Professor Kancha Illaiah to open this debate for us. We've seen the sort of topic at hand that was meant to be about freedom of expression, about sedition, about a suicide of a Dalit student at Hyderabad University and the circumstances around that really sort of open up into a larger one that's questioning, different aspects of culture, of Indian culture, of Hindu culture. What's going on really in your assessment? Right, we don't seem to have our audio with Professor Illaiah. Okay, we'll get you that in just a minute. Professor Guha-Thakurta from Kolkata, the debate has been about Mahishasura's martyrdom, how that's celebrated in some parts of the country, including on the JNU campus. There was a very emotional repetition, really an angry one, of the pamphlets around that by the Human Resources Minister Smriti Irani. The Congress got up and challenged her for having repeated derogatory comments against the goddess Durga. But can you just put into context, because there is a whole a group of people out there who say that by sort of targeting Mahishasura, really she's also targeting the hundreds of thousands of Dalits in the country. She's denigrating their culture of worship as well, because they regard him as a messiah for the Dalits.
Okay. Why the present debate has come to focus on Durga and Mahishasura is not something I'd like to reflect upon. I do think it's taking us away from the real questions at hand. But as somebody who's worked on the Durga Pujas in Bengal, I'd like to say a few things. One, that there is a very rich and long tradition of Adivasis and Dalit communities worshipping Asuras, and it has been part of several subcults and traditions. So that in itself is not anything new, and it's something which should be acceptable within the large, flexible, and multi-faceted pantheon that makes up Hinduism. I'd also like to make the point that Durga, by definition, was not a high Brahmanical deity. She herself emerged out of rich traditions of folklore, where her husband Shiva is seen to be a dissolute drunkard often. So there's a long tradition of the humanization and domestication of even goddess Durga. A smaller point, and I think a very important point to be said, yes, that while the worship of Durga does involve the killing of Mahishasura, I do believe that if you look at the iconography of Durga in Bengal, Mahishasura is almost part of the larger family. So there's Ganesh, Kartik, Durga, Saraswati, Lakshmi, and there's Mahishasura. Sure, without Mahishasura, Durga wouldn't exist. But Durga also exists in a familial context. And I do like to believe that in the way in which she is worshipped in Bengal, right, there's a lot of humor, there is a reverence, and Mahishasura is part of that larger familial context. Right. The fact that Mahishasura is also worshipped as part of several little and lesser traditions is important to respect. And I don't think that the worship of Mahishasura automatically means a denigration of Durga at all. That is my position on this. And I think there's a long tradition in which Mahishasura is created with the same love and care. The clay modelers create Mahishasura with the same love and care as they create Durga.
Right. Professor Guha-Thakurta, thanks for those comments. Kancha Illaiah is back with us now, and we also are being joined by Sambit Patra of the BJP and Tom Vadakan of the Congress. But I do want to get our academics into the discussion before I bring it to the politicians. Professor Kancha Illaiah, I was asking you when we lost your audio about the fact that this was originally meant to be a debate on the circumstances around a Dalit student's death at the Hyderabad University, the issue of freedom of speech, and what makes, what qualifies as sedition in the country today. Today we're seeing our politicians talk about the worship of Durga or Mahishasura, as the case may be, in Parliament. What do you make of how the debate has turned?
Well, Nidhi, the whole debate going away from Rohith to Jawaharlal Nehru University, and then actually, about his caste certificate, about Rohith's suicide death, and the doctor reaching there in time or not, and what Mayawati has said, that whether this commission can conduct inquiry without there being a Dalit judicial judge there.
Right.
At least if it should have been a two-member committee and so on and so forth, the whole thing has turned. But I don't know where from the Human Resource Minister brought this whole issue of Mahishasura. In this country, there are huge number of historical discourses. And this article, which was written by one very fine scholar called Prem Kumar Mani, which was printed by one of the backward class student organizations in JNU, and there was a discussion around this. Now, if this printing of the pamphlet, or if they are celebrating Mahishasura, if he is defining as anti-national, I think the nation seems to have been completely doomed.
Okay.
And there was also a police report which said that, JNU people are also celebrating beef festival, therefore they are anti-national. Then all the beef eaters, tribals, Dalits, backwards, does this government want to declare all these people anti-national? Then the producers are anti-national. Mahishasura is a big god near Mysore.
Right.
And Bali Chakravarti is a big god in whole of Kerala. Mahatma Phule wrote a huge book called Slavery around these images.
Okay.
Did she read any time such stories?
Professor Irani, thanks for that. We're going to open it up actually, because you have touched upon what went on in politics. And before I get to Tom Badakan, Sambit Patra, I want to ask you, the question really is today, what are we talking about in Parliament? Are we talking about free speech? Are we talking about sedition? Are we talking about the circumstances around a Dalit student's death in Hyderabad University? Are we talking about caste and the role it's playing in our politics? Or are we going to fall back on mythology and legend and try and prove our sense of nationalism and patriotism through that? That's what's happened. And both the BJP and the Congress are equally responsible for the way the debate has turned in Parliament.
Now, Maya, two parts to answer. Number one, the political part as to why this question was raised, where from Durga came into the debate, where from Mahishasura came into the debate. And thereafter, we would go into the iconography of Durga and Mahishasura. Now, just a second. Number one, Maya, first as to why Smriti Irani spoke about Mahishasura and Durga. Because we were discussing about JNU, we were discussing about the expression of, the freedom of speech. What is freedom of speech, and to what extent can we tolerate freedom of speech? What is reasonable restriction to freedom of speech? In that connotation, Smriti Irani rightly pulled out Jawaharlal Nehru Student Union pamphlet, which read that it is not for the first time that we raised slogans in favor of Afzal Guru, that we were stopped. In the previous years, when we started martyrdom ceremony of, just a second, please don't interject. In the previous years, when we had martyrdom ceremony of Mahishasura, we were also stopped. Then Smriti Irani pulled out authenticated pamphlet of the university as to what they had to say about Mahishasura and Durga, claiming Durga to be a sex worker. Even may my God forgive me for having said this. I would say that she pointed out to the fact that is this not should not there be restriction on freedom of speech? Are we allowed within the ambit of freedom of speech to say that Durga is a sex worker? Absolutely no. Now coming to the iconographic part of it, as to what Durga and Mahishasura is, I do not, I'm in no possession of the caste certificate of Durga or of Mahishasura. I do not know what castes they belong to. This is a fancy going on in the country now.
But if that's the case,
if Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh.
Sambit, if that's the case about, the fact that this pamphlet, one second, called Durga a sex worker, called Goddess Durga a sex worker or not, I mean, we're looking at how Hindu mythology has also worked, and one of our professors might be able to tell us as well. This idea of the Devi enticing. One second, Sambit. The Devi enticing the demon in order to vanquish the demon. That's the narrative of Durga and Mahishasura.
You are factually wrong. Sambit, you are factually wrong. Let me correct you.
Sir, when your turn comes, do correct me. You are entitled for that, but let me keep my point.
Yeah, carry on, Sambit. I'll get back to Kancha.
As far as Durga and Mahishasura are concerned, let me draw an example from what most pseudo-secularists run away from, or how they define jihad. When you ask them what jihad is, they would say jihad is nothing but killing the internal evils of the human being. Whatever evils exist within oneself, one has to kill them. That is what is jihad. Now, what is Durga and what is Mahishasura? By the same definition, if you extrapolate the same definition, Durga Maya, see, your name means Durga. Durga has been portrayed as a goddess, as a woman, because of the fact that she is
my name means illusion in Sanskrit, Sambit. Don't bring my name into it. Yeah.
No, it's Maya. Durga is Maya. Remember, she is Maya. No. So Durga, that's the reason as to why she has been portrayed in the way, and it has been told that let the senses, let the Maya kill all that is evil within. So I don't know how we are going to classify within ourselves as to the evils within us belong to which caste. So, and I'm absolutely perturbed that we are trying to name evils as Dalits. Why should we call evils as Dalits? Who are the ones who are doing so?
Well,
why should we, Mr. Kancha Ilaiah, this is absolutely wrong.
I'm going to bring let me go back to Professor. All right, Sambit, let me go back to Professor Guha Thakurta, because again we're falling into this sort of
Maya, just
framework.
one correction, small correction, Maya.
Yeah,
just
very quickly, sir.
Maya. See, he is saying that this pamphlet was printed by JNU Union and they are projecting it as JNU pamphlet. It was printed by one student organization called All India Backward Class Student Organization, and there was a discussion around it.
Yeah.
And whether one agrees with that or not, but you are propagating killing as spiritual validated point.
Okay.
And
all right.
I want to turning this into jihadi.
Okay.
What a funny history is that.
All right, Professor Ilaiah, before I come to Tom Vadakan, and we're also going to be joined by a friend of Rohith's who spoke to the media earlier today, I want to bring in Professor Ramu Manikandan from Chennai, from Madras University. Sir, we're getting into areas of mythology, and perhaps you can also help us understand some of them. We heard Professor Guha Thakurta talk about the role of Mahishasura in even the Durga Puja festivals in Kolkata. But this narrative that there is an alternate narrative that talks about Ravana, for example, or Mahishasura as those people with power, special powers, who represent the tribes, the scheduled castes, the Dravidians. Perhaps this is also popular in Tamil literature. Are we saying that there is only one narrative that should be accepted in the country, and that is of what Sambit Patra and Smriti Irani are talking about, that Goddess Durga vanquished evil, Mahishasura was evil, Ravana is evil? While that is the dominant narrative, it is not the only narrative.
I agree with you, because India is a country where we deeply recognize and celebrate the diversity of this nation. I mean, what is this diversity we are talking about is not only in terms of languages, religion, cultures, but deep within us is the traditions of this nation, such a deep and diverse tradition. What is going on for the last couple of decades is that we are kind of completely closing this diversity and creating this ethos of the supra-nationalism. And much more evident is the fact that all that has been going on in the recent period is about we should be talking politics and the just and unjust policies, but the whole diversion is taking into this religious and mythology, But the fact is that the mythological construction is also politics. And when you are constructing Ravana as a demon, when you are constructing Mahishasura as demon, but you have to give an alternative of like why is it that it's demonized?
Okay.
And in terms of you're attributing Rama as a god with human qualities and Ravana with demon with God,
right.
Another where Ravana is also worshipped and
right.
Mahishasura is worshipped by
okay.
the people. So we need to recognize this. We need to talk politics. But
okay.
if you're talking
so
mythological and using this
Tom
as a
Vadakan,
weapon.
I want to bring you into this because, when Smriti Irani was making these references in Parliament yesterday and repeating what was written in this manual, you've heard now several voices who say that there is an alternate narrative when it comes to mythological characters, religious characters, whatever you would like to call them. Anand Sharma was the one who got up and said that, how is she repeating these derogatory comments? The issue again, and we'll get Prashant into this as well in a minute, was really about one Dalit student's suicide, a 27-year-old man who she insists on referring to as a child, who all our politicians are referring to as a child, was not a child, he was an adult man. He's killed himself. The issues around his death, the facts around his death are still unclear, and suddenly the Congress is also talking about why are you being derogatory to Ma Durga? Why didn't the Congress stay focused on the issue?
These are standard diversionary tactics adopted by the Bharatiya Janata Party from time to time. The Rohith issue has literally overtaken the narrative. They had to find an exit route. Now that exit route was a focus on the sedition charges in JNU. Let me be very clear. From Rohith to JNU was essentially moving from now the ground that is being established today that he was not a Dalit, but he was a human being. And who's writing against him?
But Tom Vadakan, if the BJP is trying a diversionary tactic, why did the Congress allow it? Why didn't you bring it back to Rohith Vemula's suicide?
We will be focused on that, but let me put this on record. Anand Sharma ji raised the issue as a point of order when there are derogatory remarks about goddesses, gods, be what it may, on some document. You come to the house and use the same words. And look, I don't want to repeat the words. When you call Durga Ma what you called in the floor of the house, this is the HRD minister of this country. A point of order as per the parliamentary procedure has been raised.
Okay.
And that is to flag the issue that it stands the way they are trying to polarize society.
Okay, Prashant, I know Sambit you want to come in, but hang on. Prashant is here, Rohith Vemula's friend is with us in the studio. I want to bring him into this. You're seeing the entire country debate what's happened in Hyderabad University, especially your friend's tragic death. We've been talking about the facts surrounding it. You've met the press today as well, along with his parents. Tell us what you think about what's going on in Parliament. Where does a debate on Durga and Mahishasura have a role in the facts around Rohith Vemula's suicide?
Yes, in fact, the entire debate is uncalled for. In fact, as a matter of fact, Minister quoting that those whole posters or those whole debates that have happened long time back is itself a diversionary and diversionary tactic that has been played by the minister smartly. But however, here if you have to return back to the main focal point of Rohith Vemula's issues, minister has, though she has a copy of the letter submitted by Rohith Vemula on 18th of December, where he accused the Vice Chancellor of supporting ABVP. There was no mention about that particular letter. And she has fabricated facts to such an extent. Here I have a copy of the minutes of Executive Council, which does not even consist any SC/ST representative, which took the decision against these 5 Dalit research scholars, and she started lying in the midst of the Parliament just in order to overcome this entire crisis. BJP is trying to pitch this kind of a strategy of bringing in communalization, of polarization of the whole incidents in the Parliament.